Today on Talk It Out.
Oh, do you ever go to Rate My Professor and look at what you have there? No. It's like, well, no, I'm not one of those people that lurks online. You know? What are the latest ratings, right? But basically, they said, well, yeah, you should. They didn't say why, but so when I opened it up and looked, I realized at some point that year, students switched to gender feminine pronouns for me. And I never told them or asked them to do that. They just did it themselves.
Hey guys, welcome back to Talk It Out. Today we're going to be discussing gender identity, and with it now being various descriptives of how people identify themselves. For example, gender fluid, transgender, gender non-conforming, for example. We at Talk It Out want to keep that dialogue going so we can contribute to more social awareness. And before we go around campus and hear what you guys have to say about the topic, we are so lucky to have a special guest with us today, Dr. Ramirez. Thank you so much for coming today. Dr. Ramirez is a biology professor here at LMU, and we just want to hear about your story and your journey that you've been through.
I knew I was different in terms of gender a long time ago. 7th or 8th grade, I found a biography of Christine Jorgensen, who was one of the first people to transition from male to female back in the 60s, you know, and there was a book and, you know, newspaper articles and stuff. So when I found that, I don't remember how I discovered this biography. It was in the local library, but, you know, I could recognize, like, whoa, this is me, you know. But basically, growing up poor, you know, there's never money to do or act on any of these things. My parents were conservative Catholic. My dad was in the Army Corps of Engineers in World War II. So he was a master sergeant, so I was raised very much with kind of like, you know, place for everything in its place, you know. You can show emotion and stuff like that. So I just learned to keep quiet about those kind of things because it wasn't really a supportive environment. But, you know, the reality is even if they'd been open to that kind of thing, there was no money to act on any of that. And of course, this is long ago when there wasn't insurance coverage provided, you know, and if you're poor, you're barely lucky to have, you know, doctor coverage, you know. So I went through a lot of years just thinking that I'd never be able to act on this kind of thing. But, you know, at the same time, as that kind of video you saw showed, I had a bigger purpose in life for me, and that was to work for the success of women, underrepresented students, first-gen people, you know, because I didn't want other people coming after me to deal with the kind of stuff that I had to deal with, you know, negative messages and da-da-da. So that's kind of what kept me going. In other words, I was never like unhappy, kind of dark and, you know, sad and all that kind of stuff, because I had a bigger purpose to live for, you know. And so, you know, when you see pictures 10 or 15 years ago when I was smiling and stuff, I mean, that isn't a lie. I mean, that's really true, right? What people didn't see long ago is that went to bed at night, you know, and you're by yourself, you kind of realize you weren't really being, you know, totally true. You know, I spent a lot of years encouraging people to be true to themselves, figure out their path in life, live their dreams and stuff. But, you know, at some point, it just became silly because it's like for all this encouragement I'm giving to other people, I'm not doing it myself in terms of being authentic. So in any case, 5 years ago, I came out on campus. And, you know, gradually it was just a process to see how that process was going to go forward. So basically, I worked at 5 colleges and universities, so LMU is my 5th job. So during the 90s when I had these other jobs, so I worked at Pomona College, Bucknell University in Pennsylvania, Denison University in Ohio, in the Penn State system, and then I came here in '99. So during those years in the 90s, for 7 years, I was totally open about my gender expression. You know, and basically these jobs weren't permanent, you know, so I didn't kind of really care what these people out there thought, because I was just going to do my 2 or 3 years and I'd be gone, you know. But when I came to LMU, there was sort of this question in my mind is how would my being open about who I was play out, you know, in this Catholic setting, and, you know, it's a long time ago, obviously 15 years ago isn't now, you know. So basically I kept it a secret for 11 years, you know. And so by 2010, you know, sort of the personal toll that I think it takes on you to, like, know that you have this part of your life that you can't share, you know, it just got to be kind of too much, you know. I knew I had to do something. Because if you look at national statistics, you see that the rate of depression, suicide attempts, and so forth is pretty high for, transgender, gender non-conforming, any of those communities. I totally understand it, because a lot of, supportive people sometimes disappear in your life when you decide to do this kind of stuff. You're kind of doing it on your own. There's workplace challenges, you name it, right? So it's not uncommon for people to, drift into that kind of stuff. So I knew I had to do something for me, otherwise it wasn't going to be a good outcome. So, the surprising thing for me is that students were really some of the big proponents of support for me, really quick, really early on. During that first academic year, which was 2010 and 11, when I was open about this, somebody told me in spring semester, "Oh, do you ever go to Rate My Professor and look at what you have there?" No. It's like, well, no, I'm not one of those people that lurks online. What are the latest ratings, right? But basically, they said, "Well, yeah, you should." They didn't say why, but so when I opened it up and looked, I realized at some point that year, students switched to gender feminine pronouns for me. And I never told them or asked them to do that. They just did it themselves, So I think it was their sort of level of acceptance that, to some extent brought along faculty and administrators and staff and stuff like that. I never, in other words, if I was imagining negative, bad, dire outcomes from me being open, it didn't really happen. It was totally surprising, like, oh my gosh, wow, So basically, for a lot of students, it was kind of like, okay, yeah, you're doing this. Okay, cool. It's like, what size are you? People bring me stuff. People's moms got involved. Like, this is out of my mom's closet here. I don't know if it'll fit, right? One student a couple of years ago was moving out. Her and her housemates, they filled like 6 trash bags of stuff. She came over on a Saturday. Hi, you need to come out to the car and help me. It's like, why? You'll see. So here we are bringing these trash bags in. Everybody put stuff into the bags. I don't know if it'll all fit. Whatever doesn't fit, take it to Goodwill. It's like, fine, cool, That was just one example, and so just people got really on board with it. So I was like totally surprised.
I'm just curious to know, were you married at the time you came, you started Transform?
I am, yeah. Yeah, and that's been sort of a challenge. We're not going to stay together. We're splitting up, basically. Different people. Because again, if you look at the gamut of people's relationships, there are clearly situations where, in some cases, the person you're with can see that you're still the same, values, the outlook, and all that kind of stuff. And they're not hung up by the presentation of you sort of physically, And then there's other people that kind of get hung up on that kind of thing and can never move past it to some extent. And that's kind of my situation.
How was that conversation initially to have that you were transforming?
Well, she knew about this a long time ago. Because obviously I was married back in the 90s when I had these, temporary jobs. We got married a month after. We were both LMU undergrads. So we were both biology majors. So we got married a month after graduation in Sacred Heart Chapel.
Oh, wow.
So we went to grad school and, to the same institution and so forth. So she knew about this, for a long time, but I think she sort of thought that I would never act on this, just because of finances and circumstances and all that. So as I said, in some cases when people act on it, their partners can deal with it because they see that you're still the same person, and there's other situations where that isn't the case, and that's kind of my situation. In some cases, people in my situation try to, convince and, let's do a media campaign, try to bring you over. That's your choice, I guess. But to me, it's kind of like, look, if I have to go negotiate with somebody, it's like, no. It's your choice. It's your life. You have to decide, I have a path to pursue, and I'm going to do it, And
that's amazing.
Yeah. See, the other thing I think people should remember is that LMU, the administration here, they've been very open about my choice in life, right? So, for example, I became director of the Office of Undergraduate Research in January of 14. So they knew full well that I was, obviously, okay? So I did that job for 3 semesters. And when I stepped down from that job, I was hired for another position to be special assistant to the provost, okay? So again, they knew full well who I am, right? Okay, didn't stop them. The reason I mention that is you notice a couple of years ago there was this big controversy at LMU about the health policies at LMU covering, elective abortions and things like that. Very quickly people realized that there are some of these off-campus groups of conservative LMU alums who think that LMU is kind of going down the tubes, Okay?
Yeah.
So some of those groups are always ready to pounce on LMU whenever they do anything that they don't consider to be okay. So I've had faculty colleagues here that have had people getting, nasty calls, faculty colleagues of mine from these off-campus groups. It's like, it's kind of scary, So as I said, LMU, at least the upper level administration, they've been pushing me forward into leadership positions, knowing full well that if these outside groups, chose to, they could come and make a big, mess, whatever, but they've been doing it anyway. So as I said, again, if you think, it was only like 5 years ago or so that the LGBT, support services office was formed, LGBSS, as you see. And here we are 5 years later with people being willing to be publicly on, posters on campus, And as I said, that's a very different circumstance than when I came to LMU back in 1999. So I think society's changed, but this institution has also changed, I think. So.
Thank you so much for coming on the show. We had so much fun and it was so good hearing about your story. Now we're going to catch up with Sarah Litz, who's going around campus to hear what you guys have to say about the topic. Hey, Sarah.
Hey, Stacy. I've gathered some students to get their perspectives on gender identity. Let's hear what they have to say. So, how would you react if your son or daughter told you that they wanted to transition?
If my son or daughter told me that they wanted to transition, I'd be open with it, because I feel like in today's day and age, like, everyone's more aware of different choices. People are born certain ways, and that's how they would want to be, and I'm open to anything that my son or daughter, or whoever he or she may be, would want to be.
For me, it's not. For me, it wouldn't be something that I would hope for, honestly. But it's something that I would understand, and I would definitely support them in any way I could.
Do you believe that those who identify as transgender are born feeling as though they are internally the opposite sex, or do you see it as more of a choice?
I'd say maybe not directly at birth, but it's definitely something that's it's not a choice that they would make. It's not something that people would, jump into to make their lives even harder like that.
Honestly, it's like that part's really like hard for me to understand. But yeah, I definitely feel like they do have a choice though.
I definitely feel like they're born that way. I don't think it's something that they can change or something they have control over. It's just they grow to realize, hey, I'm not comfortable in my own body.
So do you think gender should be more fluid to eliminate the various societal pressures?
I think fluid gender is like really important in this day and age. Even like going into college, they had those options available for you when you were selecting a dorm room, and I think it's really important because people do identify as both. Like there's so much in the media today, like Caitlyn Jenner, and you have to be aware of those who want to be themselves and want to like identify as different things.
You heard it here first. Back to you, Stacy.
Thanks, Sarah. Well, thank you guys so much for watching this episode of Talk It Out. Be sure to like us on Facebook and subscribe to Raw Studios. And we'll see you guys next time on Talk It Out. Bye guys.